2 lanes to keep right.
Hey friends, welcome back. Welcome aboard. This is Prepare to Go There, the most overlooked and underrated coaching conversation on the internet. And that's my opinion, but I'm convinced that our future deserves our focus today. Prepare to Go There is an extended coaching journey for friends and leaders alike who want to lead themselves and stay focused on the future. We are the ones who want to show up ready, and we're not going to just try to rise to the occasion. We want to fall back on our preparation. And so the work we're doing today matters. We're going to go the distance. We're going to make a difference because we believe people are counting on us. We believe that mission matters. And I'm just super grateful to have these conversations again and again. It is a thrill. I realize that, putting in the preparation goes unnoticed by a lot of people, but I just want to keep you company, and I want to help you find fuel for your focus. And for me, I just needed someone to keep the conversation alive, that there is more work to do, that I can put in the work, and that it will ripple out far and wide in wonderful ways. So welcome back to the Future Frontier. And we're going to be talking about a best practice that we can use for self-leadership, and it's writing. Writing is actually a linchpin best practice that helps us lead ourselves and stay focused on the future. And we started with the big idea yesterday. We're going to go a little bit more narrow and niched down, so to speak, in the aspect of journaling and how do we write for ourselves. And then from here, we'll move out through the rest of the week. But it is great to see y'all. Joshua, thanks so much for being on. Appreciate you, brother. Feel free to drop in your questions or thoughts that you're having about this conversation as well, because I want to make sure that it is relevant and helpful to you specifically. But let me hit the why real quick, and then we will begin. I've learned from experience and observation that most people just don't know how to lead others into a better future. And it may not be their fault. It's probably because they thought leadership was a title or a position or, someone who is surrounded by a bunch of helpers. And really, that's not the heart behind leadership. We lead ourselves, then we can lead others, and then we can lead through others. Self-leadership, servant leadership, and then generational leadership. And so we want to put in the work and lead ourselves into the future first. So that way we know how to take others there with us. We're not just talking about something we hope to see one day. We're actually talking about things we are experiencing in the personal, in the prototype form, and then we're able to involve others over time. And so that's where Prepare to Go There comes in. It is a daily coaching journey. It is a conversation to help us stay focused on the future and to lead ourselves there tactically day by day. And so we put a lot of emphasis on self-leadership, on productivity, on mindset, on worldview, on systems, on rhythms. We just finished this massive run on just the calendar and how do you leverage the calendar to tame your time. And so today is all about using writing as a self-leadership best practice. And it's so funny, I kind of fell off my little intro there because my wife is already cracking jokes. She is doing comedy hour, and so I love that. But for real, if you are watching, welcome. Thank you so much. And go ahead and keep the chat going. Go ahead and give me your questions or your thoughts about this topic. I do have some really important things to say, but I've got so much that I just want to be able to steer this content in a way that's productive. So I do want to invite you, if this idea resonates with you about leading yourself so that way you can go the distance, make a difference. I want you to join our email community. It's called Future Friends. I send out an email every Friday with a bundle of all of this coaching content. And then I also share the info and incentives to upcoming masterminds that I host, as well as projects that I'm making with you in mind. And I will have a free gift for you at the end of this conversation today. So stick around for that. I love this quote. I originally found it from Michael Hyatt, and he says it a lot, but it goes like this: thoughts disentangle themselves when they pass through lips and fingertips. Pretty interesting idea, right? It means that we have to go through a process of working through our thought life and making the things we're feeling and we're facing more productive, more meaningful, more intentional. And whenever you feel stuck, whenever you feel like you've hit a brick wall or you feel overloaded, overwhelmed, there's actually a way to resolve it. It's by slowing down just a little bit, pumping the brakes, and beginning to identify what you're thinking and give yourself a process to let those ideas come through. And eventually what you'll find is that thoughts will actually, maybe they're all kind of knotted up and tangled, but they actually begin to untangle themselves. They begin to work themselves out as we just go on this creative, critical thinking process. And so I'm blown away by that. I've experienced it many, many times. And now I actually build it into my approach to productivity. So I want to pass that on to you. How do we even leverage writing, particularly journaling? And I made the title with many of you in mind, particularly my wonderful epic wife, epic life. And she'll tell you she's not really into journaling, not nearly as much as me. She's got some amazing ideas, and she doesn't need to put it on paper. She just goes after it. But the truth is, we can all benefit from journaling. And so I have a tall order today. I have to convince a few of you that this is something for you to enjoy. I wanted to cite a article that I found just to kick things off. And it's pretty amazing. I will put the link in my blog today. So keep your eye out for the blog coming out today. But this was incredible. It's scientific study shows how writing in a journal can actually benefit your emotional and mental, physical well-being. It sounds brilliant, right? Pretty crazy. A study conducted in 2013 found that 76% of adults who spent 20 minutes a day journaling before a medical biopsy were fully healed 11 days later. On the other hand, 58% of the control group had not yet recovered. The study concluded that just 1 hour of writing after a distressing event helped the participants to better understand the events and reduce stress levels. What on earth? This is crazy. I think there's something important of figuring out a way to cast our cares. And we know ultimately we cast our cares on the Lord. And I'm going to actually be explaining a little bit of my prayer journal, because I actually journal in a few different places. But we have to give ourselves a process to let the things that are inside of us come out. The bad things have to come out, and the good things have to come out. And if we're just holding these ideas inside, they are rotting on the inside of us. So all of the negative thoughts that could, seep in, creep in to our subconscious and into our feelings and our emotions, our subconscious, however that all works. If those negative thought processes stay there, they can get lodged, they can become patterns, they can become limiting beliefs, and they can begin to rot on the inside. And that has horrible impacts on us and our relationships. Conversely, on the other hand, if we have great ideas, positive, life-changing, liberating beliefs, if we have creative ideas, innovation, witty thinking, books and businesses and poems. Dang it, I don't think I said that right, but my accent was coming through. Let's say we've got some really positive things that are on the inside of us. How do we get that out as well? And if we don't, then that could, miss its potential. We could miss out on seeing some really valuable things come into the world. I heard an old sermon, and the man said that the richest place in the world was not the mountains in Africa where the diamonds and the gold and a lot of the rare raw earth minerals are. The richest place in the world was not, up in Alaska somewhere where there's all the oil, or in the Middle East. The richest place on earth was the graveyard. The graveyard. Think about that, because in the graveyard, there were paintings that had never been painted. There were books that had never been written. There were businesses that never went public. There were basically a lot of regrets, a lot of valuable ideas and visions and dreams that went unfulfilled. And he continued to say, if he had a way to glean from all of those stored up potential, then he would be the richest man in the world, and talking about the wealth of purpose, the power of purpose inside of us. And then it was really cool. He finished it out by saying, die empty. Make sure that you die empty. Don't keep anything inside you. Don't keep anything to yourself. Give of yourself. Give the value of what you carry away to the world. And I was so moved by that. And that was so, I think it applies here as well. But we have to find a process to get the stuff that's inside of us outside of us, whether it's negative or positive. We have to have a process. And that's one of the reasons why I really believe in journaling. Some people, they think of writing as a project, not a process. They think of writing as something they just do for the college paper, or something they do for the business proposal, or something they do to make emails. It's like, that's what writing is for. Writing is a task. Writing is a project. Writing is that little thing that I attached, in the email that went out to those other people. But writing is not just a project. Writing is a process. See, it's writing itself that is valuable to us. It's not just about one thing that you write. And many times we get stuck and we get self-conscious and we kind of overthink it. And we're like, man, I don't want other people to read what I'm writing, because we act like it's going to go off for a grade. We act like it's going to end up on a blog. Like if you just need to make a Word doc, like they did on The Office for Creed, and just put in a bunch of gibberish, and it doesn't go to anywhere. It doesn't go to anyone. Just write for the sake of writing. Just have a process. And when you go on that process, amazing things can happen. Now, I think that there are two mission critical life skills that are going to help leaders in the future. You've heard me say this before, but I'm convinced the future is going to need more leaders, not fewer leaders. And I'm convinced that leadership is going to be more important in the future, not less important in the future. And that's because our world is getting more nuanced and complicated and, filled with crisis, but also opportunity. And we need leaders that are going to be able to step up and speak up with the right plan, with the right way to move forward. And so there are two things that I think are going to be super mission critical. It's kind of a given because these are two things that have been valuable in the leadership space historically, but man, more than ever, we're going to need these two skills to move forward. And regardless of what happens with, algorithms and AI, whether it's narrow or more open or whatever, doesn't matter if you're thinking about the near future or some, sci-fi scenario that no one can quantify. These two things are going to make the difference for leaders in the future. It's the ability to think critically, and it's the ability to think creatively. The ability to think critically and the ability to think creatively. And these things have to be developed somewhere. I mean, when you want to grow your body and train yourself physically and get tone or get muscles, you go to a gym, you create a space where you can train your body physically. So where do you go to train your mind to be more of a critical thinker, a problem solver, to grow in wisdom and knowledge and understanding and insight and emotional intelligence and all of these, amazing strategic advantages in leadership? I mean, our world is only going to become more nuanced. And so the ability to understand connections and integrations and how things work together holistically in our our growing, small world, we're going to have these skill sets. And I have found that creating a little space, whether it's on a piece of paper or whether it's in a note-taking app, is actually the dojo where you're doing your best training in these future building skill sets. And the same goes with creativity. The human potential for creativity is beyond us, and we have to keep pushing that creativity. We have to keep growing in that creativity. And I totally believe in God-given gifts, God-given abilities, but I also think you have to steward them. I think you have to, grow them and say thank you by, expanding that capacity. And so where does that happen? Where do you actually do that? We don't always have somebody's ear. We don't always have someone's attention. We've got to be able to stay focused even when others are not around. And so again, journaling is that space, is that place where we can go on the process of writing. It's not just a project. It's not just something that I'm trying to get over with. It's something that I'm working through again and again. And I keep coming back. And as I go on this process, something very valuable is being shaped inside of me. And it's helping me work through all of that stuff. The negative stuff is getting processed effectively, and it's hopefully getting kind of flushed out, so to speak. And then the positive things are getting fleshed out in a creative and in a intentional way. And so having a place to actually go when you have all this stuff, compounding inside, you have to have a mechanism. When you feel your stress level rising, you know what to do with it. You're not going to fall off. You're not going to, be put out of the game for a few hours or a few weeks or a few months, but you know how to stay agile and think less fragile about what you're experiencing. you don't have to feel afraid that, all of these negative things are going to overtake you. You've worked on a way to externalize what you're feeling so that way you can identify root issues, you can expose lies, you can replace them with truth, you can keep moving forward. And then do the same for the positive, do the same for the creative, do the same for the innovative. When you're like so excited and amped about a brand, about a moment, a movement, something that you feel has a lot of potential to, make a dent in the world for the better, you have to have a process, a place to go to in order to make it come to reality. And so journaling becomes that. Now, I want to do a little show and tell with you. And the big idea from here forward is just journal the journey. That's all you got to do. It's not hard. It's not complicated. This is not about, how it looks. It's not about the veneer. It's not about the external. It's not about the scrapbooking and all this stuff. Now, some people, they're super creative and they're very expressive. And for them, that's what gets them, jazzed up about journaling. But it doesn't have to be that. And I think that there's kind of a stereotype around just journaling in general. And people say, well, I'm not really like that. And I want to tell you, if you're thinking, if you have ideas, and if you need a process to work on things when you're in your alone zone, then this is going to be helpful for you. This is going to be really useful for you. So I'm going to just explain basically my three-step system. The first step is this little guy right here. All right. And this changes all the time because I burn through these a lot, but this is basically a physical notebook. And I use this as a journal, and I just journal my journey in it. And mostly it's showing up in the morning time. So every morning I'm grabbing this. I have a pen. This was the coffee from this morning. And I was just spending time with Jesus. I was just praying. I was reading scripture. Man, it was awesome this morning. And I felt like there was just a handful of things that I wanted to remember, just as an example, not as, well, I'll just leave it at that. I was going to tell you exactly what it was, but you get the idea. Man, I had an amazing thought and I wanted to jot it down. And so now I had a place to put it. Now, the reason I do this is because I want to keep it with me. I want to put it in my backpack and I want to take it on the go. What I would say is this is like personal stuff, right? This is the way I'm processing and stewarding my own story. And I do a few things. The first thing is I date every single entry. Sometimes we take that for granted, but don't. I date every entry. I do the year, the month, and the day. Year, month, and day. And then I like to put the location of where I am. I'll put the location. So I'll put at and then wherever I'm at. So, most of the time it's at home. But many times I'm actually writing. It's really cool. I've been able to journal my journey, and I've ended up in other cities. I've ended up in other nations. I've been journaling now in multiple countries, which is really cool to think about. And so I put the date, I put the location, and then I just go after it. And I like to basically do points, not paragraphs. Points, not paragraph. I don't have a lot of space and I don't have a lot of time. This is just helping me in the morning. And I am reading scripture and I'm kind of working on my alone zone. And if I get a thought, I jot it down, and it's so cool to go back and read that stuff and see the progress and see the before and the after and see the answered prayers and to see just my own journey, and I'm not trying to win any awards with this. I'm not trying to publish this. I'm not trying to create some memoirs out of all this stuff. I mean, other people may do that, but that's their prerogative. What I'm after is going on that journey. Now, the second step is, which I'm going to get to in it'll be episode 63. 69. Crazy. But in episode 69, I'll be talking much more about this. This is my planner. It's the planning system that I use to take on the more productive side. And so that's really cool. And then the last step is Evernote. And I'd love to talk about Evernote. I've already done 1 or 2 rounds talking about Evernote. So I won't belabor it too much, but I've been a power user for a few years, and I went through the big dip with them when they were they were figuring out, what's going on with their CEOs. And I've been hanging on with Evernote, and I'm so glad that I did, because it feels like they have weathered the storm and now they're on the rise. And so Evernote is kind of the default for all of my thoughts, all of the articles, all of the links, all of the whatever. And the thing that helps me work with that tool is my organization system. So whenever you're journaling and you get all these inputs and things, you need a solid organization system. Now, I go into much more detail on that, and I'm going to be sharing more in some projects that I'm making with y'all in mind. But the easiest thing I would say is organize things chronologically and then tag things categorically. If you're using Evernote, that's kind of the bottom line. Organize things in notebooks chronologically, and then you can tag things categorically. And one of the reasons I like that is because I actually remember things chronologically. So, it was that year, and I think it was that month, and then we can, unpack it from there. So just journal the journey that you're on. Now, I do want to give a shout out. This is a honorable mention, because this is so cool, and I still use it when I'm traveling. But this little guy, my wife got this for me for my birthday. It's called a rocket book, and it's so simple, very, very small. And you're going to fill up those pages super fast, aren't you? And the answer is yes, I do. I go through these pages super fast. But the difference is the paper is not regular paper. It's something else. And it's got these cool little QR codes at the bottom. And basically, I can write on the Rocketbook with a specific kind of pen. Maybe my wife remembers what kind of pen it is. And then when I'm finished, I actually take pictures of these pages. They are very simply scanned into my Evernote, and then I can erase these pages. I can actually wipe them and start over. And so it's like I have infinite pages, and it's really cool. And the best use that I have found for this is when I'm traveling. Frixon pens. Okay, so when you're using the Rocketbook, you can use that kind of pen, and it's amazing. The best case use I've found for this is when I'm traveling, so that way I'm staying light. And there's another version of the Rocketbook where you can, instead of just swiping it manually, you can put it in the microwave. Literally crazy. You can put this in the microwave and it will, I don't know, melt it off or something, and you start over. And so it's pretty cool. Now you may be thinking, Peter, I don't have enough time to journal. I don't know when I'm going to journal. I will give you 3 times you want to journal. Are you ready? 3 times you're going to journal. The first time is when you're having a really big day. When you're having a big day. And this is important because you want to remember it, and you want to celebrate it, and you also want to put a flag in your journey to say, I remember that. That's important. I think it's important to have these little memorials, so to speak, that we say thank you, and we're grateful to God, and we just remember those big days in our life. I remember I was actually, I know this sounds a little crazy, maybe a little sentimental, but I was journaling on the day that I got married. And I have that journal, and I wrote my wedding vows in that journal. I read my vows to my wife out of that journal, and now it's priceless to me. I mean, it's amazing. And so you got to have a place where you can process the big days in your life. The second thing is I want you to find a journal when you're having a bad day. So a big day, but also a bad day. And you might be like, I don't want to remember a bad day. I don't want to think about a bad day. But the truth is, if you don't have a process to, like I said, flush it out, it's going to stay in there. And so you've got to be able to reframe it. You've got to be able to deal with it, to face it head on, and to basically, process it and get it dealt with. And so whenever you're going through a bad day, you're just trying to get over it. And maybe you have these, you try to shake it and it just keeps coming back. And it feels like, this heaviness and you don't know what to do. That's really where this prayer journal comes in for me, and just kind of writing out my thoughts and turning them into prayers, not just an aimless wish, but a intentional conversation with the Lord. And it just helps me to remember that I'm not alone and that this is just one day and I'm going to get through it. The last time I want you to think about journaling is when you are making big decisions. When you're making big decisions. And decisions, you don't want to make decisions when things are really up or really down. You want to carry decisions, big decisions, for a while. You want to process them. You want to make sure that you have wisdom, that you have a support system, that you've done due diligence. And big decisions, you want to have a space where you can safely begin to explore those decisions. And journaling has been a great space for me. I love it because I was reading a book by Peter Drucker, and it's called Managing Oneself. It's a kind of a business management classic. And he talks about the importance of going back and assessing your past decisions, making sure, like, how did you do? So many times we just kind of make decisions and move on, and we don't actually think that, we can get better at our decision-making process. And so that's something that I've found really valuable as well, to think about what I was factoring in at the time, and then to see how it turned out later on. And by and large, as far as the big decisions, I'm super grateful that I was able to work through them constructively and not haphazardly. Now, you may say, how often do I journal? And at this point, I'm just going to kind of digress into some details. So if you have something that you want to talk about, or you have a question that you might have, go ahead and bring it up as well. But here are three rhythms that I use with journaling, and you can pick one or you can pick all of them. But I journal, number one is whenever you want to. So literally whenever you feel like you're about to explode and you just have to put it out on something, put it in a note-taking app like Evernote, put it in a journal, just get a scratch piece of paper and just start working on it. Externalize it, visualize it, organize it, prioritize it, just go after it. And so whenever you need to, and I like saying this because if you feel the pressure to like have this really regimented relationship with journaling, you're probably going to steer away from it. You're going to shy away from it because you feel like it's just too much commitment. And I would say, see the value of this, see the benefit of journaling. And when you go at it that way, you realize, hey, this is always available. Whenever I need it, I know where to go. I have a go-to for that kind of thinking and working. And the next rhythm that I want you to consider is before every weekly planning session. So before your weekly planning session, journaling is super helpful in a reflection mode when you are looking back at the last 7 days, and then you can pivot and look ahead at the next 7 days. And I talk about this a lot with summarize and strategize. Those are the two modes that I'm using when I'm journaling through the weekly planning session. Now, when I'm in Evernote, I have created a notebook, and I just have kind of like every note is an entry. And one thing that I love to do is number my journal entries. So, like, I don't know what number I'm on specifically, but let's say I'm on 103. Well, next time I journal, I'm going to have 104. And then it'll be, obviously 105 and 6. And that's really, really cool because of the indexing power. And when you begin to string it all together and you see these themes being threaded together into the unfolding narrative that you're on, that's pretty powerful as well. I haven't done this as much, but one thing I'm considering is going even deeper with links. So that way, if I talk about a certain topic, let's say in February, in let's say, 30, entry number 32, let's say I talk about a certain topic, and then later on in May, I learn some more about that topic. I can link those two entries together. And now I'm kind of creating my own personal knowledge base, which is really powerful. So you can literally get as geeky as you want with this. You can go as far out as you want with this. And I think people who take their thoughts seriously, people who take their thought leadership seriously, they want to be really intentional about this stuff, and they want to be really organized with this stuff, because the stuff you were processing 5 years ago is just as valuable as what you're thinking and processing today. And now you're just building kind of this, like, just this underground mine shaft of all of these amazing concepts and insights and a lot of value. I think we were made to be valuable, and so we've got to steward that and give it away appropriately, which is generously. So I like journaling. I'll open up a note, and it's kind of a great way for me to just summarize what I'm facing, what I'm feeling, and then kind of pivot, strategize the next round, and then I can move very naturally into my calendar and go through big rocks, time blocks, and then wrap it up. All right, the last frequency that I want you to consider journaling, and this is the most intense, but I have noticed that I just naturally journal in the evening time. And what I mean by that is I have my phone and I just make an Evernote on my phone, and I'll do a little summary or just something that I'm thinking about. And it's a great way to keep the story going. So, this is generally in the morning, and then that Evernote side is in the evening. And as you can tell, I'm doing a lot of writing, but I'm doing a lot of thinking. And so they do go together. I want to finish by encouraging you with the simplicity of all of this. There's another benefit that we have to talk about, and that is right here. When we're journaling, we're making discoveries, we're making decisions, and that's invaluable. We have to really be aware if there's indecision or if there's a double-mindedness trying to creep up. And we have to call it for what it is. We have to call it out, and we have to go through the steps of walking in truth, being authentic, committing, our path to the Lord and sticking with it. And so journaling helps us make discoveries, make decisions. Okay, here's the last point I wanted to make. Journaling is one of the best ways that I have found to leverage multifaceted focus. to leverage multifaceted focus. Sometimes people say, do you journal for personal stuff and then work stuff and goal setting? How does all that fit in? Because you need a way and you need a process to zoom out and to begin to look at all of the roles of your life, all of the fronts of your life, and then kind of integrate it back into an aerial view. And you're looking out at the landscape of your life and you're trying to make sense of it, right? And journaling is one of those wonderful and simple ways where you can just kind of go here and there and everywhere all at the same time. It's kind of happening in stream of consciousness, but I think one of the reasons that it's so powerful is because it's starting at a very personal and profound level, and it's about your identity, and it's about where you see yourself going in the future, and then that just kind of goes into all these other areas, whether it's your relationships or your goals or your commitments. It really is a very robust process to develop multifaceted focus. And so the journaling actually becomes the paper trail that I can go back to again and again to say, what was I thinking? What was I feeling? What was important back then? What do I need to remember? How do I, stay on track? And it's been very useful to storytell a very layered narrative, and yet to keep the simplicity of just remembering it's a story, and it's a story that's valuable because it's my own and it's the one that I get to share with others. So that's one thing I wanted to finish out with, is that it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to go on all these different rabbit holes. There was one time where I was trying to keep separate, journals for different topics, and thankfully Evernote kind of cleaned that up. But it doesn't have to be hard, y'all. Just write, because I'm sure that you've got all this stuff going on the inside, and you've got to be able to lead yourself. You can't just be waiting on other people. You have to be willing to process it and move on, so that way you can get on with the future. Hey, if you enjoyed this conversation, go ahead and let me know in the chat. Go ahead and hit thumbs up. You can subscribe. You can share this with a friend. Let them know that there are other leaders that care about the work they're putting in. I told you about a gift I have for you. Here it is. It is a free fail-proof planning guide, and it will help you go on a guided planning session, right? You can do it one time. You can do it every week, but it's proven step-by-step process to start with your high-level roles and goals, identify some rhythms and routines, kind of course correct, and then put it into practice with a planning system. All right. I think this was a success. My wonderful wife said she might re-download Evernote. Come on. So good. And really, it doesn't have to be that hard. Just get on it. And I don't get anything from Evernote, by the way. I definitely talk about it a lot, but I just want you to journal your journey. We're going to move into some more practical, productive uses of writing. Tomorrow is all about writing for insights. How do we actually help other people have insights? How do we actually create and communicate content very effectively, particularly if we're trying to convey new ideas? If we're just like reminding people of stuff, you can put that in an email. But how do you actually create and communicate content that excites people and gives them a sense of insight? That is easier said than done, but it can be done. And writing is very, very useful for that. Think about all of the major speeches that have gone on in human history. We still have them today because someone wrote them down. So we want to leverage writing for our content to create and communicate with insights. And then Thursday, we're going to be talking about how do you actually leverage writing for productivity for yourself and for your team? There's actually a writing-based approach. I call it the right way. What's the right way to get this project done? Well, let's plan our work our plan, that kind of thing. But it's got some twists and turns that will hopefully motivate you to come back around. And then on Friday, I'm super excited. I've got another future friend jumping in. So if you enjoyed this, go ahead and share it one more time. Get the free PDF, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Remember, I believe in you. I'm thankful for you. I show up every day to encourage you, to give you some practical stuff, because I know that you're just leading the way on the vision side. Remember, you're going places, and because of that, you need to put in the work and prepare to go there. See you tomorrow.